All right, we should be live. Just got to send in the announcements. There's got to be a better way than doing this manually every time. And then we just got to connect to TikTok. Howdy, howdy. All right, we should be good to go. Let me just finish, let me just make sure. Oh, yeah, there's some echo. Some echo here too, probably. Yep, I just shut it off. We're good. We should be good to go. All right, we should get started then, as is tradition. Can you Venmo me some money? No. Why is my mic sideways? Because it seems to pick up my voice better that way. I don't know why, it just does. So you guys know what to do. This is a question and answer stream. At some point I probably need to upgrade this mic, to be honest. I got it for like 120 bucks or 130 bucks or something like this like a few years ago. And it's kind of like the streamer starter kit. Blitz, you said that you don't subscribe to Universe from Nothing. What is the consensus on how we're here? There isn't a consensus. That's the end of it. There isn't a consensus. It is indeed pretty colors. Let me go shut the door really quick. It is indeed. All right, well, let's let some people trickle in. Give it some time. It's up to you guys whether you want to watch vertical or horizontal or TikTok. There are options in both places. Such as the nature of things. Oh, you know what I should do? I should make it so that your TikTok's glitching. Strange. Oh no, okay, so that should be fine. I don't understand. Is TikTok still glitching? It shouldn't be. Is there the only one electron theory? No, that theory hasn't kind of like went out the window in like the 50s even. That was to try to explain why all of the electrons are the same. But now we know the answer. It's because they all come from the same electron field. What are the prereqs for studying quantum mechanics? So you should have some linear algebra and some differential equations under your belt. Of course, calculus as well. What do you think of Q-Top? He is free content. When a black hole merge, what happens? The two black holes merge. They circle each other depending on what the initial conditions are of the black holes colliding. They'll either circle each other or collide directly towards each other. Most of the time they will circle each other. In doing so, they will get closer and closer as they radiate away gravitational energy in the form of gravitational waves, and then they merge and become one black hole. No horizontal. Horizontal stream is live on the second channel. Oh, you know what? I need to double check something because there was an issue that I was having yesterday that for timers. So if I go to sorry, I just need to double check something because something wasn't working yesterday. Support. Okay, now it should be good. Right, sorry. What's the best theory to tell us what initiated the cosmic inflation? I mean, it could be that cosmic inflation is eternal, so like nothing initiated it. This would be called an eternal inflation model. Otherwise, we don't really have any explanations as it stands. Do all planets spin? I mean, yes, insofar as like, in order for it to not spin, you would have to have perfect conditions lining up. The Big Bang impact can still be seen in the universe. The Big Bang wasn't an impact. It was just the universe being small and hot and then expanding and getting less small and less hot. That's all it is. Is it just me, or is like the text, are the names a little bit too long? I know that there's a way to like well, it's fine. All right, let's answer some questions. Can any reality exist without time? Sure. I guess it really depends on what you mean by reality. Like, there's nothing contradictory about just a static space that doesn't have time, right? Do you think negative mass is impossible? I suspect as much, yeah. Taylor series is difficult, or am I just stupid? You're not stupid. It's not that difficult. It just takes practice, that's all. What jobs can you get with a physics degree? Well, you can go be a physicist. That's kind of like the obvious one. But more than that, you can probably, well, okay, it depends on which physics degree you have. If you just have a bachelor's degree, then you're probably going into engineering or into software. That's the end of it. If I let go of a ball in the air, what will happen? It'll fall, generally. Heat death effectively impossible? No, not necessarily. So heat death will happen so long as the universe keeps expanding keeps accelerating at a constant rate. That seems like that's not going to happen. There are other ways that you could have heat death, but you would need to have like a slowing accelerated expansion that never stops. YouTube is messing with usernames. That's weird. By the way, if you do spam questions, I don't appreciate it. How do you feel about voids? I don't know what that question means. Like, you mean like galactic voids? They're just interesting places where there's not very many galaxies. Do you support string theory? I support it as a scientific endeavor. I don't think it's necessarily true for our universe, though. Can Poincare recurrence time reset the universe after heat death? No. As long as the universe is still expanding, then Poincare recurrence is infinite, right? Poincare recurrence only works if your volume is fixed, i.e. if you have a closed system. Why does gravity need to be unified with the other forces? It doesn't need to be. However, we need at least some quantum description, because currently we have this state of affairs where like electrons can be in more than one place at once, and yet gravity doesn't know how to account for the two different places that the electron is simultaneously. Do you have a personal favorite possible explanation for dark matter or dark energy? My personal favorite, I mean, what I think is most plausible for dark matter is just some particle that we haven't heard about. Dark energy, I have no idea. What's new on the axis of evil? I haven't heard anything new about it. Why gas burning on the sun? So the sun is not burning. All that's happening for the sun is that it's just really, really hot plasma. And the plasma gets really, really hot because there's nuclear fusion happening in the core of the sun. That's not burning. That's like a nuclear reaction, not a chemical reaction. You play Kerbal Space Program? I did a long time ago, and I played a lot of Kerbal Space Program. Where did the random initial rotation in the universe come from? It's not clear that there was initial rotation, and if there is, then we don't know. How can the theory of gravity be combined with quantum mechanics into a single consistent theory? That is one of the hardest questions that humans have ever asked. Why do you think that you'll get an answer from me here? How useful is math for you in your daily life? I mean, advanced math, obviously, outside of your job. Oh, well, I would say not very, but that's because, you know, I spend a lot of my time working on math stuff. So like, I mean, this is all to say, like, most people don't need like super advanced math for their day-to-day life, but those who do, right? How to get into physics jobs like astrophysics? Well, you need to go get a degree in astrophysics. Why are spent nuclear codes considered dangerous but not unused ones? Well, unused ones haven't done all of the decaying of the uranium. Uranium on its own decays pretty slowly. However, the decay products from uranium decay a lot faster. And faster decay means that they're more radioactive. They emit more radiation, and that's the dangerous part. Gretchen with the $3.11 asks, what's better, In-N-Out or the Habit? I've never had the Habit, so I would have to say In-N-Out. Why do planets spin? I understand they rotate around the sun because of its gravitational pull on them, but what causes planets to spin? So the same reason why the planets orbit is the same reason why they spin. Basically, in the early I read a word. In the early solar system, everything had angular momentum in roughly the same direction as a result of basically friction. And so anything that formed is going to be moving in a certain direction and be rotating in the same direction. That's why Venus is so weird, because it's rotating in the wrong direction. I thought debates were on Wednesdays. No, Ask a Physicist is Tuesday, Wednesday. How long do you think the Earth has left? Well, a few billion years. Would you recommend mechanics or physics class for a geologist bachelor study? Mechanics probably won't help you with geology. Could you hear sound in a dense gas cloud in space like a nebula? It would have to be really dense. Like most gas clouds in space are really, really not dense. What's the deal with entropy and evolution? They're not really related. Currently I have a Chem PhD. Should I go back and do physics? If you want to, I guess. But you could just you have a Chem PhD. You don't need to get another PhD. You could just kind of slowly transition to physics. I have an astrophysicist friend, and he was writing a report trying to disprove astrology, and along the way he saw it was so accurate he became a Vedic astrologer. What do you think? I think that that's a made-up story. Either that or your friend was not actually an astrophysicist. Will the universe collapse? I mean, does everything expand and then contract? We don't know at this point. That's an option that's on the table. Do you think time is continuous or discrete at the small scale? Again, we don't know. I've written a paper about it being discrete. I kind of have intuitions that says it's continuous. So like, we should be agnostic about these things unless we have more data. What's your opinion on the quantum measurement problem? I think that it's essentially resolved with quantum decoherence, or classical pointer states, and the many worlds interpretation. Are there real research on cryogenics, or are they complete scam for rich people? I have no idea. That's not my field. Do you think space and time can arise from dimensionless framework? Plausibly. That at least doesn't seem ruled out. Why does radiation actually affect cells? Yeah, so this is a good question. We're talking about ionizing radiation, presumably here. Ionizing radiation is the stuff that'll give you cancer, like UV radiation and so on. The reason that affects cells is because radiation is literally, so if we're talking about like ionizing UV, like UV or X-ray radiation, it's literally just high energy photons. And those photons can go and they can just smack into your DNA and break it apart in bad ways. Other radiation basically does the same. How does something as simple as gravity work? Well, our best models of gravity account for the effects that we see via the curvature of space-time. So matter and matter systems curves space-time. That curvature of space-time is what causes the bending of trajectories that we see as a result of gravity. Hawking radiation is quantum entangled particles. How does that reduce the size of a black hole? It's not, I mean, I guess they're entangled in some sense, but like the point is if you take the picture of Hawking radiation where you have virtual particles popping up at the event horizon, the virtual particle that popped up on the inside of the event horizon automatically has negative energy just based off of the way that energy behaves inside of a black hole. And similarly, the Hawking particle that's on the outside has positive energy, so the net is 0. And what you end up with is the one that's inside falls in, and because it has negative energy, it must take away energy from the black hole, and it's carried away by the one with positive energy. Is it true the only way to prove matter exists is the existence of time? I don't understand that question. I mean, look, unless you're a solipsist, like matter definitely exists. Like you can just hold stuff, right? What are the odds we're inside a black hole right now? I think it's quite low. This is more of an astronomy question, but do you have a favorite moon? I like our moon. I think our moon's pretty great. If the nucleus of a hydrogen atom were the size of a basketball, how far away would the electron be? The electron is not a single point. The electron is a smeared out probability cloud that fills the entire atom. So however big, this is to say a hydrogen atom is not mostly empty space, right? Why does Earth have gravity and the moon has less? Is it because of the mass difference? Yeah, it's because of the mass difference and because of the density and because of the size difference. So you could in principle take the mass of the moon and crunch it down to a smaller size so that if you were standing on the moon, it would feel like you were standing on Earth. But the density of the moon would then have to be much higher than like the rocks want to be at. And the rocks can sustain bigger pressure so they wouldn't collapse down and come to higher density. Hey, PhD in physics student, I'm barely keeping up with study and research advice. I feel like I don't know shit. Yeah, so it depends on where you are. One of the things that I regret from my PhD is that I read significantly less than I should have. Instead, I just, rather than reading, because reading is boring, and we're talking about like reading physics journals, by the way, or like physics textbooks or math textbooks or whatever. I just spent most of my time doing the actual work, and I kind of learned as I went. Now, what that meant is that I was able to be successful. I was able to get the stuff done, but I also came away with, I feel like, less generalized knowledge than I could have had. So maybe avoid that. Spend time reading, like dedicate like, one day every week at least to just do some reading, work on some practice problems or something. Can I learn quantum physics without multivariable calculus? No. You need calculus for physics. Does radiation edit DNA or delete it? Do you think that there are more positive changes to be discovered? So radiation just blasts it. It breaks it apart. Now, it could be that sometimes doing so, like your cell has a whole bunch of repair mechanisms. So it's possible that like the DNA will be blasted apart and the DNA and the cell will repair the DNA in a way that gives you some sort of advantage. It will like put it back together or whatever. But most of the time that won't be the case. Sixth grade explanation of entropy, i.e. what is space expanding into, potentiality. None of that has to do with entropy. So entropy is a measure of mix-upedness. That's what Josiah Willard Gibbs called it. You can think of it as basically when you make, when you're studying some physical system, like a gas in a box or like a pot of water or whatever, when you make macroscopic measurements of it, how much information are you leaving on the table compared to how much information you have. So when you make a measurement of, a gas in a box, you might measure its temperature or its energy or its volume or its pressure, or any of these things. But you don't have information about how the individual particles are moving. So all of that information is being left on the table. And the more information you would need to specify the entire physical system, the more information that you leave on the table that would be required to fully specify the system means that the system has more entropy. Why are billionaires obsessed with going to Mars? I don't know. Would you consider a theory that our universe is just the inside of a massive black hole? No, I don't think that that's really grounded in anything, actually. How can there be curved space-time locally, but overall space is flat in 4D? So it's not that, so space isn't flat in 4D. Space is three-dimensional, so space is flat in 3D. But the point is that what is measured is the curvature that space would have if there were no matter there. And that's something that we can measure. If there were no matter there, then it would be at least all of our data says that it would be flat. However, there is matter there, so it's not flat, but that's kind of, that just sets the baseline. It sets the shape, if you will. If the rate of expansion of the universe is increasing, where's the energy coming from? It's not coming from anywhere. Dark energy doesn't conserve energy. Like, energy is not conserved in an expanding universe. That's just true. Can you explain the observer effect? Yeah, the observer effect is merely the phenomenon where when you try to measure or interact with some system, you will become coupled to that system. And so you interact with it, it interacts with you. And so the system that you're trying to interact with could change the way it behaves. If matter cannot be created or destroyed, how do we have atoms? Matter can be created or destroyed. This is a lie that chemists tell you. Absolutely, you can destroy matter. Absolutely, you can make new matter. We make new matter in particle colliders all the time. You destroy matter whenever you own a banana. Bananas emit antimatter, and when that antimatter electron goes and it finds its regular matter electron partner, they annihilate each other and they cease to exist. I'm currently doing my PhD in astrophysics. How do you manage time when work could just never stop? Oh, so I treated it like a job, right? So I know that a lot of PhD students will be like, oh, you have to be spending 70, 80 hours in the lab. Like, I was a theorist, so I didn't have to spend time in the lab. Unless something was really, really urgent, I always cut myself off at 5 or 5:30. That's just what I did. I just forced myself to do that. Now, maybe that meant that my PhD took a little bit longer than it could have, but that was my choice. How have Laplace transforms transformed your life? They haven't. If the laws of physics themselves are subject to laws, who determines the law of laws? I don't know why we would say that they're subject to laws. I don't know what that would mean. Could consciousness be linking to objects seen by the observer effect? We don't have any evidence that that's the case. Do you think that you'll discover anything new? I mean, in some sense, I have. Like that's what academic papers are about. Sorry, gotta smear that out. Don't the particles release their energy when they're annihilated, though? Well, sure, but then it's not matter anymore. It's just light. Light isn't matter, right? What do physicists do? They do physics. It's kind of a dumb question, or a dumb answer. C-Bar with the $5. Thank you for the super chat, for the donation. I appreciate you, as always. If there's no evidence, what is the observer effect? I told you what the observer effect. The observer effect is the phenomenon where you interacting with something or something interacting with you, or a camera interacting with something and something interacting with the camera, changes the way the something and the camera behave. That's what the observer effect is. It's just poorly named. It doesn't have anything to do with observers. Is heat death still the leading theory of the death of the universe? How do we go about proving it? So it probably still is the leading theory of the death of the universe, if only because consensus is slow to change, but there is evidence coming out slowly that dark energy is getting weaker, and what that would mean is that heat death isn't the inevitable outcome. While objects fall at the same acceleration, do objects going down a slide accelerate at different speeds based on mass because of the normal force of the slide? No, so there could be friction involved, but basically all the normal force does is it just makes it so that it stays perpendicular to this, or stays in motion parallel to the slide, and so no, the speed is controlled just by the angle of the slide. How do you see AI changing physics over the next 5 years? I have no idea, but I don't know how big of an impact it'll have. At least not like the stuff that I do. What does energy is just a bookkeeping number in Noether's theorem mean? It means that it's just a property. Like, you know, temperature is just a bookkeeping for how much kinetic energy something has, right? Temperature is just like a thing that we measure to keep track of like what's going on with the system. Energy is the same way. I'm currently studying physics in my first year of undergrad. What job opportunities can I expect with my degree? That's something you should ask your academic advisor. What is time physically made of? I don't know if time is made of anything. If the moon causes tides, shouldn't our weight change during the night? So the moon isn't only out at night, by the way. The moon is out during the day half the time and out at night half the time, over the course of a month. But the thing about tides is it's not just the moon is just pulling the water up. It's the point is that the moon is pulling the water up ever so slightly more than it's pulling the center of the Earth up. So yeah, it is the case that when the moon is directly overhead, you will be ever so slightly lighter. It's just the force is pretty weak. The only reason why the tides have a significant effect is because there's just a lot of water. Does physics require high innate intelligence IQ compared to other fields? I have no idea. Why do physicists think they're so smart when all they do is theorize? Well, have you never heard of an experimental physicist? Like, I just don't know what to tell you. How many scientific laws do you reject? Well, in principle, you wouldn't want to reject any if they're actually scientific laws, right? Tidal force is the difference. Okay, yeah, there you go. You answered that. In a hypothetical heat death scenario, through what process do long-lasting structures like rocks floating in space decay? So it depends on the physics that you're invoking. So things like that, in a heat death scenario, plausibly they just continue to exist being cold. Now, there are hypothetical ideas where you could have like things tunneling into black holes. So like imagine that you have all of the particles jiggling around in your rock, right? Well, there's a small probability that they all happen to be in the same place at once. And maybe that means that they could become a black hole, and then the black hole could evaporate through Hawking radiation. So that it's not clear. It's really not clear. Is there a paper calculating and giving a value how slightly the man's weight should change? You could calculate it if you wanted to. Just calculate the force on you from the moon at a distance of, what, 235,000 miles? And then subtract that force from your weight. Can cell towers really hurt our body? I haven't seen compelling evidence of this, but like, if you have seen it, then more power to you. I don't think that like that's the medical consensus. How do people survive in space in 250 below zero? They wear a spacesuit. What? Are you worried about AI taking over your Ask a Physicist podcast? No. What is your best counter to the fine-tuning argument? How do you know it's fine-tuned? It's a simple question. The thing about fine-tuning is that it relies on a lot of assumptions about the way the universe is that we don't know. How is me moving one way and looking across the galaxy and another looking into the future? So I don't understand what the question is. You really think that spacesuit could handle 250 below zero? Yeah, and it turns out that space doesn't really conduct thermal energy away quickly. So yeah, it actually doesn't take a lot to keep you safe from the very cold of space. How long did you take to get your PhD? So 4 years of undergrad, 2 years of master's degree, 5 years of PhD. From Matt Stitch with the $1, thank you so much. 250 degrees above and below, that's 500 degree difference, and you think a man can walk around with a flimsy suit? Well, considering that there's no atmosphere to steal the heat away from you or to make you hotter, it's really not that hard. Why we take speed of light constant even in particle physics? Because it measures to be constant. Did you get a scholarship for my PhD? No, in the United States at least, STEM PhDs are paid for. Nobody pays for a STEM PhD. Tell me your take in string theory, why no progress yet? To be clear, there's so much progress in string theory. Like, string theory is way different today than it was 20 years ago. Now, does that mean that I think that string theory is like the correct theory of everything for our universe? No, it doesn't. But to say that there's no progress, to say that it's useless, or whatever, to say that it's failed, I think that's a complete misrepresentation. What is mass? How do we get these formulas? F equals ma and P equals mv. So those are basically empirical relations. Well, okay, sort of. So Newton sort of defined force to be, Newton sort of defined force to be the thing that is mass times acceleration, because he realized that, you know, if you push on something, if it weighs twice as much, you need to push twice as hard. So he kind of just defined F to be ma, or at least net force. Similarly, momentum was kind of just defined mv. You could have had any other, you could have had like a 1/3 in front of that, but then it just wouldn't have lined up well with the other stuff that had already been defined. Do you know anything about wormholes? Yeah, they probably don't exist, because so there's an issue with wormhole stability. Namely, it seems like it's impossible to stabilize a wormhole without negative mass. Do you accept conservation of mass? Exactly, why not if so? Oh, mass isn't conserved. Mass is not a conserved quantity. Or rest mass in particular is not a conserved quantity. You can shoot 2 protons together at extremely high speed, and you'll get like 100 particles out that have total rest mass more than the original 2 protons. Didn't you study uni in Europe? Nope. Do you think an electromagnet could be used to travel the universe? No. Energy is conserved, though. Still no. Energy is more conserved than mass is. Energy is conserved locally. It's not conserved globally, meaning that on cosmic scales, you shouldn't expect the total energy to stay unchanging. In fact, it's even the case that on cosmic scales, you can't even define energy. Do you keep with the latest battery breakthroughs? No. Where this universe come from? I don't know if it came from anywhere. It may have always been. Is symmetry the cause or effect of laws? I don't think that I don't think that laws cause anything. I don't think that symmetry causes anything. I think that this is a relationship. 2 different ways of describing the same thing. Is it not conserved because of dark energy? Yes. Can you explain this, how a massless thing have momentum? Yeah, so momentum is not just mass times velocity. That's only what momentum is at low speeds. But the speed of light, but light does not travel at low speeds, and so you just need a more correct formula. Is there a black hole? If there are black holes and white holes, I wonder if there are gray holes. So there are no white holes as far as we can tell. White holes are merely hypothetical. We don't have any evidence that they exist. We don't have any mechanism by which they could exist. What are your thoughts on Penrose's triple C theorem? It's not called a theorem. It's called conformal cyclic cosmology. It's like a hypothesis. It's like a model. I think it's beautiful. I think it would be great if it were true, because then a lot of my PhD research would be a lot more relevant for cosmology, but it seems like it's not true. It seems like it has some serious issues. From Drew Crew with the $5, why is the weak force a force but not the Higgs field? It's a good question. So roughly the idea is that we kind of expect the forces to be described via gauge bosons. The Higgs field is not a gauge boson, meaning that it doesn't arise as a result of a gauge symmetry, kind of being promoted from global to local. Second, it doesn't have the right kind of interactions. So the Higgs field interacts. The Higgs field kind of, well, okay, I guess it does have the right interactions. It's just, yeah, the correct answer is it's just not a gauge field. It's not a result of a symmetry, so we just don't call it a force. How do you feel, do you believe quantum entanglement will ever move to manipulation instead of just observation? No. I mean, like, we sort of kind of can already, but you can't like choose which particle which state the entangled system ends up in. Which uni did you study in? I'm not telling. That's private information. Is the wave function physically real or bookkeeping? I lean towards it being physically real. The YouTube live stream just kind of like cut out for a sec. Sorry, we're back. Can you make a video about the Nobel Prize in Physics? I already have. It's on YouTube. It's a YouTube short. How does relativity explain why magnetism is just a moving electric field? Well, look, so relativity says that for any inertial observer, they should observe the exact same physics. And so if you have an observer that is moving with the charge, then they just see, like, imagine they just have an electron, say, flying through space, and somebody's moving along at the same speed as that electron is. The person who's flying along with it would only ever see electric fields. And yet somehow, somebody who's not flying along with it has to see the same effects of the forces that the electric field that the traveling observer sees. So, but if you only accounted for the electric field of the moving electric charge, that just wouldn't account for all of the forces that you need to see. So it turns out there's an additional force that you need to incorporate in both perspectives so that the pictures line up. How much do you earn? I'm not going to tell you that. If energy comes from annihilation and energy can be turned into mass, can't matter not be destroyed? No, you can destroy matter all the time. If you own a banana, you're destroying matter. How to solve limits with x to the power of an unknown? There's not enough detail in that question. I'm sorry. Did you kill the Nobel Prize Physics series? No, I made a video on that like 2 days ago. I've just had other stuff to make videos about. Second law of thermodynamics debunks eternal universe theory. No, it doesn't. Why can't magnetic monopoles exist? They can, we just haven't found them. If we are just a collection of particles obeying laws of physics, do we have free will? I don't think so. The concept of banana ownership is funny to me. It's funny to me too. Do you sometimes regret studying physics instead of engineering? Never. I'm curious why you call yourself an atheist, not agnostic, since you can't prove God's non-existence. I think that there are good arguments for God's non-existence, and those are compelling to me. Hence, I call myself an atheist. Where does the electron come from? How is it generated in beta radiation? The electron is beta radiation. Well, at least it's part of it. So in beta radiation, what you have is you have a neutron, which is not a stable particle, by the way. In some, like when a neutron's on its own, it's not stable. It will decay in about 10 minutes. And in some atomic nuclei, the neutrons are not, they're not absolutely stable. They're metastable, so, which means that there's a probability that they can tunnel to a more stable state. And when they do so, the neutron basically splits into a proton electron and an electron antineutrino. It does that via the weak nuclear force. The reason why it's rare is because the weak nuclear force is weak, but you can kind of think of the electron as breaking up into those three things. The proton stays in the nucleus, and the electron and the electron antineutrino are ejected, and hence you have beta decay. From Nectu, with the $2, someone noticed your title has yesterday's date. That's true. It does have yesterday's date. I should fix that. I'll fix it later. Well, I can fix one of them now anyway, but I can't fix the other one yet. I'll have to do that later. Come on. What are the 3 digits on the back? No, I'm not telling you. What's your best advice for an upcoming scientist that couldn't be learned in a book? Well, you're gonna have to learn somewhere, and TikTok videos are not the best way to do it. Books are still the most reliable way to learn, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know what else to recommend, but I think that learning from a book is probably a skill that you can practice. Sorry, one sec. If we are a universe inside of another universe, is light traveling faster than I don't know what that question means. Do you think time travel is possible? To the future, yes. To the past, probably not. Time traveling to the past, it seems like would require some negative mass matter or something along those lines, and that doesn't seem possible. Would a universe prior to the birth of our own have a second law of decreasing entropy? It just depends. It just depends on what's really going on. I mean, like, in some sense, the second law of thermodynamics just says what direction time moves in. So, like, if you demand the second law of thermodynamics, then that just means that time could reverse direction in principle, if entropy can decrease. Is there something that is the opposite of a black hole when it produces mass? I don't know what the question means. What's the leading theory on as why the observer's influence in quantum physics? So look, so the observer doesn't have a significant influence, at least that's the mainstream view. The mainstream view is that it's the act of interacting with the system that does such and such a thing that causes it to behave differently. It has nothing to do with an observer. Marcos Bicuza says, with the $2, thank you, what's your opinion on nuclear energy? I generally think it's a good thing as long as it's done safely. How can we land on an asteroid for travel? I don't know what you mean by for travel, but we have landed something on an asteroid. If time travel was possible, wouldn't we already know? Maybe time travel to the past is only possible after the time machine has already been invented, right? Do you believe in law of attraction? No, it's pseudoscientific nonsense. Dark energy could be our negative mass if our wormhole is big enough. Dark energy doesn't have negative mass. If you're spamming your questions, I'm going to mute you. Have you seen AI come into the field? Not so much. I'm horrified about nukes. Is there anything calming that they're not being used? I'm in 8th grade. How do you get better in math? You practice. You just sit down and you actually do it. Hi, can you explain recent progress in black hole stability conjectures? So I haven't been paying attention to it since like last year, but I know that there is pretty significant progress on things like stability of Kerr black holes. That's really the thing that they're interested in. I think that also there's progress on Schwarzschild black holes and de Sitter space. I think that there's still a lot of issues with Kerr black holes and de Sitter space though. How can you support nuclear energy if we don't know how to stock the residues? We do. You just put them under a mountain. What do you think is the real reason for the pyramids? They were tombs. What do you think 3I Atlas really is? It's a comet. What causes wave function collapse? I don't think that wave function collapse actually happens. I think that the many worlds interpretation is probably more likely to be true. And in that case, there is no collapse. There's just branching. Do you think energy and matter always existed? Well, energy doesn't exist. It's like a property of substances. It's not a substance itself. Did matter always exist? Maybe. Perhaps better put, there was never not matter. Let's put it that way. what do you think about the simulation theory? I think it's better. It should be better viewed as a simulation shower thought because it doesn't have any evidence backing it up. What's Stephen Wolfram doing? Being a crank while also making bucket loads of money. Does jet fuel melt steel beams? No, but it definitely weakens it. What's the reason behind body mass fluctuations? Oh, I don't know. I'm not a physician. How can there be a concept of always without a start? I don't understand the question. It's just always, it would mean that for every day, the thing was there. If you fell behind in physics 2 and need to catch up, what are the most effective study strategies? Going to office hours would probably help. You could ask your professor and see if they'd be willing to, like, you know, spend some time with you. But I mean, at the end of the day, you have to catch up, which means doing the extra work, spending more time on it. If my questions are skipped, does that mean I have a bad question? No, it just means that there are currently 600 people, 650 people asking questions. Why do you think Wolfram is a crank? Because he kind of is, right? Like the kinds of things that he writes kind of are. And he's not really willing to take criticism. Have you heard about the CERN particle accelerator? Yeah, the Large Hadron Collider, it's a big deal. If magnetic monopoles exist, then theoretically, when could we find magnetic current? Well, if we find magnetic monopoles, then we could find magnetic current, right? Do you think consciousness is just a result of brain function? I do. Does eating garlic soup make you better at physics? Oh, I don't know. But it's yummy. What do you think of Michio Kaku's literature? I think the stuff that he wrote in the early 2000s is probably quite good, and then he kind of went off the deep end. What's the Borg-Guth-Vilenkin theorem? The Borg-Guth-Vilenkin theorem, I'm not even sure if it's accurate to call it a theorem anymore because there's a paper came out last year that shows that it's actually not true. It's false as stated, as originally stated. It was a mathematical statement that on average, if the universe was, if the universe has been expanding for its entire history, then that would mean that it would end up at a singularity, at least classically. That's what the Borg-Guth-Vilenkin theorem says. But it's not clear that it's true. 3i Atlas invasion, it's a comet. It's a comet. Is there a plan for a larger collider with approved funding? Not yet. I don't think that there's approved funding yet. Do you support the theory that large dams can slow the Earth? It's not a theory, that's just true. It's just not very much. What's your understanding of the axis vehicle concept proposed by Max Tegmark? So that wasn't proposed by Max Tegmark. That was an observation made by astrophysicists a while ago. I don't know what Max Tegmark has said about it, but suffice it to say, I think that it's probably a mixture of a small coincidence and amplification and noise that we don't understand yet. What's the difference between Hilbert spaces versus spacetime? So Hilbert space is like an abstract mathematical space. Spacetime is just the thing that you're in. What do you think about I already answered that. What was the area of the hot dense state before or during the Big Bang? So the observable universe was about this. I mean, it was expanding, right? So the observable universe, we could say that like 13.8 billion years ago was about the size of a beach ball. What percentage of experts believe Everett? Like 20%? It's not the majority, but it's like a large minority. Neurolancer with the $5 says, what are your thoughts on entropic theories of gravity like Berlin's? So what I've read, and I haven't like verified this myself. I haven't gone through and like checked the proofs and checked these things because it's a lot of simulations that I don't want to read through. My understanding is that it's essentially been falsified as a result of examining the entropy of the gravitational entropy of other systems besides black holes, of like non-spherically symmetric systems, for example, and just showing that that doesn't match with what you would need in order for entropic gravity to work. Dr. Blitz, imagine muting me instead of answering my actual question. You're not muted. I can see your thing. Do you think we're like an organism living inside an actual living thing? No. What's your take on the mathematical universe hypothesis? I don't like Platonism. So is QFT the best explanation of gravity we have? QFT doesn't explain gravity. That's the current problem. If there were more people like Diogenes throughout history, do you think that we would have advanced faster? I don't know, but we definitely would have had better comedy, right? what is dark energy or dark matter? So these are different things. Dark energy is this idea. Dark energy is whatever is responsible for the accelerated expansion of the universe. Dark matter is whatever is responsible for the extra gravitational field that we seem to see that we can't account for with the matter that we can see. How is Peter Hintz's new book on microlocal analysis? Have you looked at the ebook? No, I haven't read that. I haven't looked at it even. I hate microlocal analysis, and I say that with love in my heart. It's horrible. It's scary. It makes me want to be very sad. However, one of the pioneers of microlocal analysis, Richard Melrose, is actually writing me a letter of recommendation for postdoc applications this year. So at least he said he would. Who knows if he'll actually do it? So, you know, maybe I should actually go learn some microlocal analysis. Is China provably better at theoretical physics than America? I don't know if it is yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if it would be in 10 or 20 years. Why do you like Platonism? It seems silly. Do we have any idea what dark energy is? No. For a long time, we thought it was a cosmological constant, but that seems wrong now. Will you ever work in industry? Who knows? Who knows what the future will bring? Why were the fields made for each particle and not their property, like a mass field, spin fields, etc.? I don't know what you mean by made for. The way that our universe is, the way that we think of quantum fields, they describe, like, excitations in quantum fields are what particles are. And so whatever the properties the quantum field has, that's what the properties the particles will have. It doesn't make sense to talk about a mass field because a mass is like a property of a thing. It's not a thing itself. Is it possible that the universe is just a structure too large to measure and there could be more of those structures inside some sort of... You could have that shower thought, but there's no evidence that that's the case. Have you read A Brief History of Time? Not only have I read it, I have it next to me. Right, this is the book I recommend to everybody who wants to get started reading about, like, cosmology and stuff. How likely is it that how likely do you think it is that intelligent aliens exist? I think it's very likely. I just don't think that they've ever been here. Making sure that, sorry, I don't know why. Okay, we're good. Is there anything in physics that keeps you up at night? No, I sleep pretty well. Would it be possible to fill up the whole universe with air? No, there's not enough air. How is it possible that Young's double slit delayed choice is not info traveling back into the past? I made a video about this like a week ago. Essentially, once the photon hits the screen, its behavior is fixed. Now, you can filter out, you can like collect the data of the photon hitting the screen, and then you can like computationally like filter out some of that data and leave you with an interference pattern. But that's just a computation that you're doing later. It has nothing to do with what actually happened. Are you married? I am. What's your take on repeating Big Bang Theory? I don't think that we should rule it out yet. Dark energy is just very wide fishing net made up of quarks. I don't know what that means. Does IQ matter in studying physics? IQ doesn't really matter, period. Why are you reading off ChatGPT to sound smart? I'm not. If I was typing, you would hear it, right? I'm not. How is it possible that the universe is constantly expanding? It is. I don't know what you mean. Which part about it seems impossible? From Herman Preet with the $5, is there a mass threshold for a quark star? Or is there nothing between neutron stars and black holes? So as far as we can tell, there's nothing between neutron stars and black holes. Now, the point is that neutron stars might be quark stars in their cores. They might have just like a quark gluon super, or like a quark, like a, what is it called? A strongly coupled quark phase in the core, and we just don't know. So neutron stars in some sense might be quark stars, but there doesn't seem like there's some separate thing called a quark star that's even smaller than a neutron star. Can you do that fast typing thing again? Oh, I was just spamming keys, not actually typing words. How do electromagnetic waves propagate through a vacuum? Electromagnetic waves are waves in the electromagnetic field, and the electromagnetic field exists everywhere. Are you published? Yeah, like more than a dozen times. Is the universe an open or closed system? What do those terms even mean in relation to the universe? And the universe is closed. Aren't all systems closed? So it's not even clear if those are sensible terms to apply to the universe. So if you give me a definition of open, or if you give me a definition of closed, then we can think about whether they apply. But like the standard definitions are, the standard definitions of open and closed in thermodynamics are really definitions that apply to systems that have an exterior. And our universe kind of by definition doesn't have an exterior. Although Dr. Blitz has said that he types at like 180 words per minute. Yes, when I'm trying hard, when I'm focusing, it is 180 words per minute or so. That's about right peak. When I was in 6th grade, so when you're younger, you're faster, right? When I was in 6th grade, I took a typing class, and I peaked at 216 in that class. I was very proud of that. I never did it again. I averaged at like 180 in that class, but yep, peaked at 216. I was very proud. From Samuel Saria with the $5. Thank you so much. Hi, do you think there is any link between quantum mechanics and Einstein's general relativity? Probably not. No. General relativity needs to be, general relativity is like the classical version of whatever the quantum theory of gravity will end up being, if there is such a thing. Do you know about the Schumann resonance? Yeah, the Schumann resonance is basically just like, it's basically the longest wavelength radio waves that can propagate in a standing wave around the Earth. So the Earth's surface kind of behaves like a conductor. It's not really a conductor, but like you can ground things in the Earth. So the Earth kind of behaves like a barrier, like a conducting barrier. And then there's the ionosphere, which is also a conductor. So you basically have like atmosphere between two conductors. That conductor and that atmosphere is shaped like kind of like a hollow sphere, a hollow sphere that's thick. Now, the Schumann resonance is basically the longest wavelength electromagnetic wave that can kind of oscillate between those two barriers without canceling itself out. And that is it's like 7.5 hertz or something like this. It's very, very low frequency. And the energy for the Schumann resonance comes from lightning strikes. Sphere-shaped air. There you go. Yeah, that's what the atmosphere is. How do quantum decoherence and gravity potentially interact? Well, according to Penrose, gravity is what causes quantum decoherence, but I don't know if I buy that. PhD in physics, slightly more smug and miserable barista. I do not work at a coffee shop. Let me make sure I haven't missed any cash apps. You're Googling everything? If I was Googling things, then you would absolutely hear it, right? Why did Einstein think the cosmological constant was initially wrong? So he didn't. So initially, he didn't include it because he just didn't think about it. And then he realized that with his theory of gravity without the cosmological constant, the universe can't be static. So he put in the cosmological constant to make the universe, to make his theory compatible with a static universe. And then he realized that the universe, then he found out through observational evidence that was collected by other scientists, he found out that the universe wasn't static. So he's like, oh, there was a mistake. I shouldn't have it included in the first place because the universe isn't static in the first place. And $10 from KCJ Bomber. Why can't China make stealth coatings for their jets as stealthy as F-22? Oh, I have no idea. This is not a question for me. I don't know anything about stealth stuff. I'm sorry. Okay, I should just mute this guy because he's spamming. Could the constants of physics evolve or change? In principle, they could. They just wouldn't be constant, but we've never seen that happen. Milo Rossi collab whenever he reaches out to me. He's too big for him to listen to me reaching out to him. American exceptionalism? What? What kind of physics do you specialize in? I do gravity physics, like gravitational physics. So that includes stuff with black holes, stuff with cosmology. I also do some pure mathematics and like mathematical physics. So I do mathematical stuff that has like applications to like gravitational physics. Hey Blitz, how does string theory compare with quantum field theory? String theory is way harder. Also, string theory it's kind of like a souped up version of quantum field theory. So string theory, instead of having individual point particles, which is how you model interactions in quantum field theory, you have extended objects that are called strings, and they can interact by merging, by splitting, and so on. The cosmological constant has been proven wrong, but no one seems to be talking about it. Best not, I guess, as the whole model starts to fall apart. The cosmological constant well, I don't know if it's been proven wrong. It's, the current data is like 4.2 sigma. So it seems like dark energy is not a cosmological constant, which means that, yeah, we need to adjust the theory. It doesn't really change much about the Big Bang, like the Big Bang happening, but what it does change is it changes the future. It changes what will happen in the future. Have you ever seen a single atom before? I have not personally. KCJ Bomber then asks with the $10 again, assuming string theory is a lie, then what? String theory is not a lie. It's a mathematically consistent quantum theory of gravity. The question is whether or not it's a quantum theory of gravity in our universe. That I suspect not, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth it, because if we can understand any quantum theory of gravity, whether it's for our universe or another, then that will tell us what kinds of things, what kinds of features a theory of quantum gravity will have. And I think that that's helpful. TikTok physics for illiterate masses with profit, or are you trying to compete with AI? What? I don't know what that question means. Dark matter, what is it? My guess is probably a particle, some kind of particle we haven't seen yet. What is the universe expanding into? Wouldn't it be expanding into an area if its area is getting larger? No. So the universe is not expanding in the sense that like it has edges that are getting further away from each other. The universe doesn't have edges. The universe, on the other hand, is expanding in the sense that if you take like a given chunk of space and it's like 1 meter across, then in a billion years it'll be like 2 meters across. That's what we mean. Is time a matter? No, time is not matter. The universe is not even expanding at the same rate in all places. As far as I'm aware, the evidence is still that it's homogeneous and isotropic. Is the big crunch slowly becoming a bigger reality after finding out that dark energy loses energy? It's not necessarily becoming reality. It's just on the table and we can't throw it away. From Mike Diamond, thank you for the 200 gems, for the hanging lights. Does the Mandelbrot set prove God? No, I don't see how it would. Can I cook popcorn in the CMB? You probably could have like 13 billion years ago, but not today. It's too cold. Do photons redshift instead of aging? Those two things are kind of the same thing. By the way, if you want to watch in horizontal, you should make sure to go to my second channel, which is at Dr. Blitz Debunks on YouTube. You can watch it on your TV that way, and it looks a lot better. And you can watch in horizontal there. Super chats are still enabled there. You can see all of the comments from TikTok and from YouTube from all of the possible streams. They're all merged there, so you can read them. So that's a place that you should go. Make sure to go subscribe. Sorry, I missed some questions. Is it possible that general relativity and quantum mechanics are both correct but in no way compatible? That would be very weird, because then like, what is the gravitational effect of an electron? An electron can be in a superposition of multiple states, a superposition of multiple places. So then which place is the center of gravity for that electron? Is it possible to artificially create a black hole by introducing enough matter into a star? I guess. Yeah, I guess. It's like in principle possible. Are we still underrating or overrating how much AI will still progress in the near future? I'm not an AI scientist. I have no answer. I have no idea. Nothing you study explains reality. Why? I don't know what that question means. Does time have many meanings in science? Not really. How did I end up here? I'm skipping my quantum mechanics class. Because you like physics. That's why. Does information have mass? What is information in physical terms? Information doesn't have mass. However, it's possible that the way that you represent information can mean that certain ways of certain information can have more mass. Certain information can be encoded in a system that has more mass than other information in the same system. For example, if you encode information by saying we put the electron in a high energy state if it's a 1 and a low energy state if it's a 0, then it will be the case that if you have more 1s than 0s, you'll have more mass, because energy and mass are equivalent according to E = mc squared. Yo, dude, why do your eyes look so weird in your latest short? I think YouTube is auto-upscaling your videos or something. Oh, no. Okay, so I was trying a new thing. I was trying a thing where it's like an automatic, like, it probably uses AI to like make your eyes look like give eye contact. So like it always centers your eyes. And I think that's probably what you're picking up on. It definitely looks a little weird, but I wasn't sure how people would feel about it. But I won't do it again. Am I blocked? No. What about the shape of the universe? What do you currently think is the best model? So our data is currently consistent with a universe that is spatially flat and infinite in extent. That's the one I lean towards. Are you still doing atheist debates on other days? Yeah, I do debates on Monday, Thursday, Friday. What do you think to be found when they start world biggest super collider made France in a few years? I don't think that that's been planned yet. Is the heat death of the universe a plausible theory? It's still plausible. It's just not definitive anymore. Oh yeah, ants on it. That's a good point. Always looking straight into the camera makes a person look like a sociopath. Sociopaths stare like that. That's true. But then people also get mad at me when I'm like reading a script like on a teleprompter, like right below the camera. They're like, "Why are you reading? Like, what am I supposed to do?" Is Dr. Blitz Debunks, is his Dr. Blitz Debunks channel? So the channel is it is at Dr. Blitz Debunks, no spaces, no periods, no nothing, on YouTube. That's what it is. Hey, what are your main interests with mathematics? Have you worked with any mathematics? Yeah, my main interests are conformal geometry and submanifold embeddings. You spent your life studying others' understanding, nothing more. What's the conclusion? Oh, I don't think that that's true. Like when you write papers, you're generating new ideas that are like brand new. Hey Blitz, just wanted to reach out and share. My first paper was officially published recently. Congrats, that's a huge deal. I remember my first, I think it was accepted in late 2022 was my first. That's a huge deal, congrats. Well, okay, my first paper that I seriously contributed to, I did something as an undergrad, but my name's just on it. I shouldn't, I don't feel like it's mine. Is the universe flat, or the parts we see appears to be flat? So the universe, the data that we have is consistent with the universe being flat. Now we have no way of seeing what the universe is outside of the observable universe. But if we're going to assume that the universe is homogeneous and isotropic, then if the observable universe is flat, then we should assume that the entire universe is flat as well. This is on TikTok too? It is on TikTok, yeah. Absolutely it is. I got a paper published in Science on the evolution of fevers. That's so cool. Not having your name in your first major undergraduate collaborative project with the postdocs as a rite of passage. Look, my name was on the paper. It was with a professor. It was for my honors project. But I feel like I didn't really do much. I probably didn't deserve, like, well, okay. I deserve to have my name on it, just not as much as I did, I guess. Because I think my name was first. Do you think information is more fundamental than matter energy is, or just a bookkeeping tool? I don't know. I just don't know. I lean towards matter is the fundamental thing, and then everything else is just a good description of it. Can you store or represent information in a massless way? Probably not. Well, okay, you can store or represent information in a way that is that it doesn't take mass to. It'll always take mass to change, but it might not have. But all zeros might not have a different amount of mass than all ones. For example, if you just store it in the spin of a quanta of like an electron, and you don't put it in a magnetic field, then the electron doesn't have more energy in one configuration than another. Wait, isn't today Wednesday? Today is Wednesday, yeah. So is light a wave or what? Yes, light is a wave. What was your first true contribution? My first true contribution was the first paper that I published as part of my PhD thesis. So my PhD thesis was basically, I took 3 papers that I wrote. 2 of them were with collaborators, and then I glued them together. So the first one we submitted to the preprint server in like at the end of 2021, I want to say, and it got accepted by the end of 2022. And you know, that was the vast majority of that work was mine. There were some ideas there that weren't mine, that like, you know, because not every idea can be yours in a collaborative paper. But most of the ideas were mine. Like all of the calculations were mine. Most of the writing was, well, I guess the writing was done collaboratively. So yeah, but I'm not going to tell you the topic because then you could go find it. Do you have an Erdős number? Yeah, I think it's like 6. It's not very high, but that's because my area of mathematics is really far removed from combinatorics and number theory. Are there any hypotheses supporting steady state without a big crunch or Big Bang or Big Crunch? Yeah, well, no. I mean, the Big Bang happened, so any hypothesis that doesn't have a Big Bang just doesn't work. So not that I know of. Yeah, there are comments, lots of comments on YouTube. We have something like 250 people watching on YouTube. We have 400 people watching on TikTok. Is the universe a hypersphere? The evidence that we have says no, but the evidence is also consistent with a really, really big hypersphere. In the same way that flat earthers get confused because the Earth looks flat, even though it's just a really big sphere, it's possible that our data is just showing that the observable universe looks flat, even though the whole universe as a whole might be an enormously large hypersphere. Why does this person so weird? Do you think generative AI use will be a major problem in physics papers? I don't know. I suspect maybe eventually, not yet. At least not in the good journals. Thoughts on the big rip? It seems like it's been pretty ruled out by now. Matter can't be created, but how does it just appear in a quantum field? So quantum fields interact with other quantum fields. If the interaction causes quantum field A to give energy to quantum field B, then quantum field B, the way that it can store energy, one of the ways that it can store energy is in the form of particles. If everything in the universe follows laws, even chaos, then what exactly is the role of choice? I don't think that there is one. I don't think that we have free will. The Big Bang is fact. Are you sure about that? Yeah, I mean, the Big Bang happened. Like, all the evidence points towards it. Like, if you think otherwise, then you're just being anti-science. Bro thinks he's Tony Stark. Well, I did when I was in college, because when I was in college, I had a, I wish I had a picture of this. When I was in college, I built a lab. I built like literally a high voltage laser lab in my dorm room, freshman year of college. And then I got yelled at by the RA for soldering in my college dorm room. And the only reason I got yelled at was because I left my door open so that it would air out so it wouldn't be toxic. So then I just started closing the door so I wouldn't get yelled at. I told him I would never do it again. Of course I did it again. I just started closing the door and I opened the window. So if we like build an even bigger super collider, you think we'd be able to get lasting black holes? We would need one like the size of the galaxy, I think. I would need to run the back of the envelope math, but like, I don't think we can't make one on Earth. Would fourth dimensional creatures see shapes in 3D, but also with an unobservable plane of existence? I don't understand the question. What did you observe? What did you achieve, Dunning-Kruger? People with PhDs generally don't have Dunning-Kruger about their own field. Like, I think that you're just misusing that phrase. I am in final year of my PhD in quantum physics. Congrats. That's a huge deal. If you don't have free will, what are you exercising when you think and act? You're exercising your will, just isn't free. Can entanglement be used to send info or not? It cannot. There's something called the no communication theorem that you can prove that you just can't communicate with it. You can't send information. Just curious, are you required to derive GR equations of the Schrodinger equation in undergrad? Well, you can't. Okay, so I guess it depends. But both of those are not really equations that are derived. They're kind of empirical equations that work. By the way, here is a super chat that you should look at. It's not a super chat, it's just regular chat. If you want to support the stream, there are a few different avenues that you can do so. Cash App and Buy Me a Coffee are the two best ways to do it. Live YouTube chat isn't loading for me. Let me refresh. That's weird. What do you mean by your will just isn't free? Really curious. Well, your will is determined by like external factors and internal factors. Flatland observed 2D creatures from above. Okay, yeah, sure. So 4D creatures, yeah, so if there are 4D creatures and we are just living in a 3-dimensional subspace of their 4-dimensional space, then yeah, they would see us like we would see Flatland people. Do you accept PayPal? PayPal doesn't seem to go very far these days. I also don't have a PayPal that's public. What do you think about the global flood through the lens of a physicist? It doesn't seem possible. Please say chucklefuck. Thanks. You're welcome. Thanks for the $3, Gretchen. Here's my question. What's up with nuclear fusion? It seems impossible given the costs of material and rarity. No, so nuclear fusion is absolutely not impossible. So the materials are really easy to get. You basically just need water. You can split the water using electricity to turn it into hydrogen and oxygen. Let the oxygen just go into the atmosphere. Now you have hydrogen. Now you need to filter the hydrogen so that you can get deuterium and tritium. Those are naturally occurring. They're just rare. Well, deuterium is naturally occurring. You could take a regular nuclear reactor, a fission nuclear reactor, to turn the deuterium into tritium, and then you can take your tritium and you can do fusion with it. It's like, we don't know how to do it yet, but it doesn't mean that we don't know that it's impossible. Do you know about Bob Lazar? Yeah, he's a hack. How would you theorize a device to hold the theoretical element neutronium? Neutronium's not an element. I don't know what you mean by neutronium. Big Bang Theory said to explain the origin of the universe. Why does it rely so heavily on assumptions and interpretations like cosmic microwave background radiation and redshift rather than direct? That's at the end of the sentence. Look, so it's not the origin of the universe, first of all. The Big Bang model, also the technical name is lambda CDM. The Big Bang model describes the evolution of our universe from a small, hot, dense state to the cold, large state that we're in now. It doesn't say anything about where it came from. It doesn't say anything about what caused it. It just describes the evolution from the small, dense to the large, not dense. Secondly, using indirect data is not assumptions. You have a hypothesis. It makes predictions. You check to see if those predictions come true. That's evidence for your hypothesis. That's how we do science. And it's more than just cosmic microwave background radiation. It's more than just redshift. It's also baryonic acoustic oscillations. It's also the helium abundance, helium to hydrogen primordial abundance ratios, the deuterium to hydrogen primordial abundance ratios. It's a lot of things. The large scale structure of the universe. All of these things are consistent with the predictions of the Big Bang, which is evidence for the Big Bang. Why should I trust scientific data? I mean, look, I'm not going to tell you that you have to do anything, but if you want to come to accurate conclusions about the world around us, if you want to believe true things, then your best bet is to use empirical science to do that. And because you can't do all of the empirical science yourself, you should just look at the empirical science that's been done already. Can we determine the center of the universe where the expansion occurred from by measuring the strength of the cosmic background microwaves in various directions? There is no center of the universe. In the Big Bang model, there is no center of the universe. The expansion happened everywhere simultaneously. How does DNA arrive from nothing? It doesn't. Who says that it arrives from nothing? It's very there's a lot of very complicated chemistry involved. From who the F is ENSO with the $2. Thoughts on blowtorch theory 3-stage model of CNS? I have no idea what that is. This sounds, I think that this is like a biology thing, and I know nothing about that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you sent $2 to ask me a question that I have no idea. I don't even know what those things are. How would you contain neutron star material for human study? Oh, we don't have anything that could contain neutron star material. What's the lowest grade you've gotten since you started college? I got an A- in grad school in statistical mechanics. That's it. If it happens simultaneously, why is the universe still expanding? It didn't happen, like, it's still happening simultaneously everywhere, right? It still is happening. It's still expanding everywhere. Lol, competing theory with lambda CDM and then a 3-stage extension of cosmological natural selection. Oh, so CNS also stands for central nervous system. But yeah, I've never heard of that. There are a lot of competing theories, but most of them don't stand up to scrutiny. Is there an upper limit on the amount of energy that can exist within a specific volume? Yes. Yeah. Those are called black holes. If science explains how the universe began, what decides the rules it follows? Science does not currently explain how the universe began. If we are traveling to the black hole, then there shouldn't be a Big Bang. What do you mean we're not traveling to a black hole? When did you study your degree? So I finished in 2022 and I started university in 2011. How long have we been live? Okay. Can you show equations you used in the needle hitting the Earth video? I don't have those equations anymore. I made that video while I was on a different computer, and so I don't have the calculations. If galaxies didn't spin, we'd fall into the black hole. Well, kind of not really. I mean, the point is galaxies are not solid things that are spinning. You just have things that orbit, right? We have $7, 7 Canuck bucks even, from Overtorque. Can you explain your understanding of the many worlds interpretation if that's what you subscribe to? If not, what do you believe? Love what you do, by the way. Well, thank you. Yeah, so the many worlds interpretation, which is what I lean towards, I subscribe to it, if you will, is roughly the idea that there is no wave function collapse. Rather, by interacting with the system in a way that you would think would cause wave function collapse, all you're doing is you are entangling yourself with that wave function. And so now, if you were originally in a single state and you interacted with a say an electron that was in a superposition of up and down, and you interacted with it, now you are entangled with it. So now you are in a superposition, and in fact, your superposition is you measuring the electron in the spin state up, superposed with you measuring the electron in the spin state down. And as a result of quantum decoherence is basically when entanglement you can measure the amount of entanglement in a system. When the entanglement spreads out enough, things start to behave more classically. And so the idea is that as the entanglement spreads out to the world around us, you end up having kind of disjoint classical worlds. And those worlds can't talk to each other because of this decoherence phenomenon. And so we call those separate worlds, even though it's still just one quantum wave function. It just feels like it's separate worlds because we're only aware of one. And from Fosco with the $5, sorry if stupid question, will magnetic floating cars ever be possible? So like in principle, yeah, but you would need to have stuff on the what is it, the asphalt, the car? Sorry, not the car, the street, that would provide the force pushing upwards. You can't really do this with like just putting a magnet at the bottom of the car and then expect it to float on asphalt, right? Like if the bottom of the car was made of like superconductors and you had some sort of magnetic track, then yeah, the cars could float. But why do that? Rolling is already really efficient. Can you explain how the universe is flat? Yeah, so what flat means is that there's no intrinsic curvature even if you took away all of the matter. That's what flat means. Oh, I didn't mean to highlight that. What has Bob Lazar lied about? His education? How can a particle tunnel through a barrier it doesn't have the energy to cross? That's the whole business of tunneling. So the way that we describe wave functions is that they're kind of smooth, continuous things. And that's kind of like a requirement in order for them to be the way they are. And so what that means is that if there's something that it couldn't get through, if it weren't able to tunnel through it at least a little bit, then it would the wave function would just abruptly stop there. And that's not really how we understand wave functions to behave. So instead, what we find is that you get like a continuous change in the wave function, which is decaying in amplitude as it passes through a barrier that it can't classically be in. But as long as some amount of that wave function gets to the other side, there's a probability of it making it through. At what speed we travel if we consider all Earth rotations, even universe expansion? So speed is always measured relative to something, so you have to give me what it's relative to. If we have a universe with gas distributed almost uniformly, wouldn't gas clump and decrease entropy? So gravity doesn't necessarily decrease entropy. Dr. Blitz, what's your height? I'm 7'8". I'm not one of these short kings who's 6'5". Sorry, let me hydrate. Do you think quantum experiments use more time than what than should theoretically exist? No, you don't need more time. You don't need multiverses to explain what the Willow chip does. That's standard quantum mechanics. If energy curves spacetime, what's the geometry of negative energy? It's kind of curved in the opposite direction. Why can there only be 2 electrons in an orbital? I have a chemistry exam tomorrow. So I don't know what the chemistry answer is. I don't know what your chemistry teacher is expecting, but the real answer is in a given orbital. So the real answer is that electrons are something called fermions. Fermions are a type of particle that when you swap 2 of them, the overall wave function, which is the mathematical description, gives you a negative sign overall. And so if you have 2 identical fermions in the exact same state, Well, swapping them shouldn't change them, but it should also give a minus sign. And what that means is that you need something that doesn't change, and you need something that is the negative of itself. And the only thing that's that is 0, which is to say you can't have 2 electrons in the same state. That would have its wave function, the wave function of that, the wave function of 2 electrons in the same state would be 0. So what this means is that electrons can only ever find themselves in different states. Now, in an atomic orbital, the energy levels are one of the descriptors of the state. So you can have 2 electrons at the same energy level, as long as they're different in some other respect. And the other respect that they can have is their electron spin. You can have one that spin up and one that spin down. Electrons only have 2 spin options, so that's why you can only have 2 electrons in a single electron orbital. From Jute, sure, with the 5 British pounds, what does this button do? Anyone know? It sends me money. Now you know. Is entropy what causes passage of time? Maybe. Or rather, maybe it's what causes the appearance of the passage of time. Where'd you get your education? At a university. Are my questions too stupid to answer? No, there's just a lot of questions. I can't answer all of them. What or when room temperature superconductor? Who knows? We can't really predict these kinds of discoveries. Why are you an atheist when everything points to design? Because I don't think everything points to a design. Do you like pop science? Yeah, generally, if it's done well. Turns out I'm the one making the pop science now. If an Alcubierre drive is possible, could we use one to move the Earth and Sun together across the universe? Yeah, but you would need like negative energy. And we don't have any negative, or we would need negative energy matter systems, and we don't think that those exist. Why do subatomic particles have something called spin? If spin is actually related to rotating about an axis and electrons make up things, so how do they rotate about something? So spin, quantum spin, is not about a thing. Sorry, it's not about a thing rotating about an axis. It's just a source of angular momentum that if you didn't think that it existed, you wouldn't have momentum conservation. It just seems like that subatomic particles have this fundamental intrinsic angular momentum. Why does taking the derivative of x give you v, and it's... I have no idea what this question means. The derivative of x with respect to what? What's v? I don't know. Wait, why can you have more than 2 shells, 2 electrons in a higher shell? So look, so there's the electron shells, which are S, P, D, F, these things, that tell you kind of like how far away from the nucleus you are. Those tell you about energy levels. And then in each electron shell, there are subshells. The subshells tell you the different levels of angular momentum that you can have while having that same amount of energy. And in each of those subshells, you have, or each subshell you could think of as like, sorry, the number of subshells that you have depends on the energy level, depends on the shell. And in each subshell, you can have exactly 2 electrons. We have 2 British pounds from Floyd. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate you, Floyd. If gravity bends space-time, does dark energy flatten it locally or globally, and how do we measure it? So dark energy smears things out insofar as it drives things further away from each other, so it makes the gravitational warping less significant because it's more spread out. But it doesn't like have a negative effect, if that's what you mean. It doesn't act like it has negative mass. Is it better for you if we watch you on YouTube or on TikTok? Probably on YouTube, especially if you watch in horizontal. Because I'm trying to make that channel do better. I'd like that channel to do better, so. Recommend any sci-fi book that you love? My favorite science fiction is The Ender's Shadow and the Ender's Game series. Hey, is there any reason why Einstein's field equations would need to be modified? Well, if they don't agree with observations, then we would need to modify them. What do you think about the 3-body problem? It's annoying to compute, but other than that, it's not really interesting. Sorry. So there's basically 3 levels. So you have 3 quantum numbers. This is just a correction. So there's 3 quantum numbers in an atom. There's the energy quantum number n, there's the angular momentum quantum number L, and then there's the magnetic quantum number. Now, I'm sorry, you are totally right. So for each energy level, you can have, so let's just talk about it. For an atom, let's say a hydrogen atom, you have energy quantum numbers 1, 2, 3, all the way up to whatever number you want. Now, the angular momentum quantum numbers, this is L, these can go from 0 all the way up to 1 less than your energy quantum number. And then your magnetic, what's it called, the magnetic moment quantum number or something like this, M, those can go from the negative, yeah, so I left out the third bit. Those can go from negative of your angular momentum quantum number to your angular momentum quantum number. So you can go from -3 to 3. And then each of those you can have spin up and spin down. That's roughly the idea. God, it's been so long since I've thought about the hydrogen atom. Has negative mass energy been disproved by the second law of thermodynamics? The second law of thermodynamics doesn't really have anything to do with that. Dr. Blitz, you're 5'10". No, I'm 7'8". It's true. Can something come from nothing? I don't know that nothing can exist, so I suspect not. Does Methuselah prove that something existed before the Big Bang? No, the Methuselah star's age has been dropped down. Yeah, the real answer is 6, 7. No, I'm not going to do that. What kind of job can someone get with a bachelor's degree in physics, or is it just better to go for a PhD? If you want to do physics, then you should go for a PhD. If you just have a bachelor's, you may as well you're basically going to end up as an engineer or a software guy, or maybe a finance guy or woman. How to ask and donate. You have to be on YouTube. I can also see donations that you guys send, like the gifts that you guys send on TikTok, but you can't send messages with those. Is Dr. Blitz Debunks the new channel you were trying to promote? Yeah, it's that one. Dr. Blitz Debunks. It's, let me just send the message somewhere and then we send it there and then I can put it up there. Yeah, so this is the channel. You guys should go subscribe to it, go watch the videos. All the fun stuff's there. The fun debate stuff will be there, and all of the horizontal stuff is there. Thoughts on the JWST looking back and finding fully formed galaxies? So to be clear, it's not finding fully formed galaxies like the ones here. It's finding galaxies that are more developed than we kind of thought they would be, but they're still tiny compared to the galaxies that we have, right? They're still absolutely tiny. They're just kind of more developed than we thought was possible. But that's because we didn't understand how early universe galaxy formation worked. Now, Fred with Arrow, with the 2 British pounds, just send in $2, 2 British pounds. Thank you so much. Flash memory question. At a quantum level, what eventually causes it to become unwritable? Oh, I have no idea. Is Leonard Susskind a credible guy? Absolutely he is. He's a little bit out there, but he is brilliant. Is there any fundamental reason why time has to be one-dimensional? Well, it doesn't have to be, but if it weren't, then we lose predictability and then science kind of stops working because then things can make loops in time and all sorts of other weird things. What is your career besides building your social media? Do you do your research? Yeah. So I spend about 3 or 4 hours every morning working on science communication. And then I spend about 5 or 6 hours every afternoon doing research. So that's what I'm going to do in about 40 minutes. I'm going to go make myself a cup of coffee and then start working on, I have one paper that I've been working on with a few colleagues for like a year and a half now. It's been so close to being done for so long, but they keep having kids, they keep having babies, which is delaying our work a lot. So I'm trying really hard to get that thing finished. And then there's a paper that I've been working on for about a year, a different paper that I've been working on for about a year, with a more senior colleague, and we're hoping to finish this by like this week or next week or something like that and get that out. So yeah, I mean, like that's what I spend most of my time on. Kids will definitely throw a wrench in something. Look, I totally understand that. Absolutely, take the time off, be a parent. It's just awkward for me. Do you have kids? No, not yet. Any intermediate book for astrophysics? I never took any astrophysics courses, so I don't know any. Could gravity be some form of compounding electrostatic force? No, not really. By the way, here's the Discord link. If you're 18 plus and you want to join my Discord, screenshot this now. Can you talk a bit about your research? I don't want to go into too much detail because if I do, then that means that I will be easily findable, which I'd rather not be because people can be very cruel. What led you to physics compared to other science fields like chem or bio? Oh, because physics is way cooler. There's like black holes and stuff. Like that's what it boils down to. What's the best question to debunk a flat earther? Just ask them how sunsets work. You might be the only guy I know my age that doesn't have kids. Because I'm still applying for jobs and my wife is still applying for jobs and stuff like this, like we're just putting it off. But yeah, the plan is to have kids. Is Blitz your real surname? That is a secret that will go with me to my grave. Do you think our universe could be in a black hole? I don't think that that's really plausible. I think there's a good reason to think that it's not, actually. Can you help me with IB physics work? Nope, I don't do homework help. Why can't the speed of light be any faster? Well, if it were any faster, then we would call that the speed of light, right? What about that comet hitting us? There's no comet hitting us. You're talking about 3I Atlas, which is just a comet, and it's like 100 million miles away or something like this, or 50 million miles away. It's very, very far away. How does heavy theoretical physics research look like? What are you looking for? So the two projects that I'm currently working on are more math projects than physics projects. Because I kind of like straddle the line between mathematician and physicist. It's just people want to hear from physicists more than they want to hear from mathematicians, which is why I call this Ask a Physicist rather than Ask a Mathematician/Physicist. But generally, the kind of theoretical stuff that I do is very much, okay, so what if this? And then I try to see if I can build a model that makes it work. And if I can't, then I abandon it and I try something else. That said, I'm traveling next week, so I won't be live a lot next week. I'm traveling next week to start some new physics projects with some colleagues. How's your understanding of other scientific fields like chem or bio? My understanding is it's probably a little bit better than your average layperson just because I read a lot of science stuff. But I would say that like a junior, possibly even a sophomore, like a good junior student, a good sophomore student, or like your normal, yeah. So let's say you take a good sophomore or junior in chemistry or biology, will know more about those subjects than I do. Are you in your 30s? I'm 32. I turned 32 a few months ago. Does the universe have zero total energy? That is the question, isn't it? That is the question. All right, y'all. I think I'm going to end the live here. I'm starting to feel raspy in my throat, and I feel like my voice is starting to give way anyway. So I'm going to end the live. We'll be live tomorrow with more debates. I haven't decided which topic we're going to do, but we'll do something. Make sure to go join the Discord if you're 18 plus. Make sure to go subscribe to the new YouTube channel, which I'm trying to get to take off. It's less sciencey, more debunky, more debatey. That's the channel that you should go to if you want to see debate content, if you want to see debunking content, if you want to see the science content. Go follow my main YouTube channel, which is @BlitzPhD. I will see you guys